The emergency alarm echoed through the corridors of research. Station Delta 7 as Alex Rivers finished his morning coffee in the cafeteria. 3 months into his assignment as a junior maintenance technician, he had grown used to the constant hum of alien machinery and the sight of beings from dozens of different worlds working together. What he had not grown used to was the panic that now filled the faces of every engineer, scientist, and officer rushing past his table. Alex grabbed his toolkit and followed the crowd toward the primary research bay. The massive space housed the Galactic Coalition's most ambitious project, a captured Void Reaper Superweapon, a reality-bending cannon that could tear holes in the fabric of space itself. The weapon had been recovered from a derelict enemy ship 3 years ago, and the Coalition's best minds had been trying to understand and reverse engineer it ever since. Today, something had gone very wrong. Chief Engineer Thane stood before a wall of holographic displays, his crystalline form flickering between colors that Alex had learned indicated extreme stress. Around him, dozens of engineers from various species worked frantically at control stations, their efforts accompanied by the increasingly urgent beeping of warning systems. "Status report," demanded Admiral Corvin as he strode into the bay, his scaled features set in a grim expression that Alex had never seen before. "The quantum resonance chamber has completely destabilized," Thane replied, his voice carrying the harmonic undertones typical of his species. "We were attempting to run a low-power test when the entire system cascaded into chaos. The harmonic frequencies are now completely random, and every attempt to restore order only makes the situation worse." Alex edged closer to get a better view of the displays. The wavelength patterns looked like a violent storm, with energy spikes and dips that seemed to follow no logical pattern. To most observers, it would appear as meaningless chaos, but something about the seemingly random fluctuations caught his attention. "How long to repair?" Corvin asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer would not be good. "Our preliminary estimates suggest 6 months minimum," Thane admitted. "The quantum matrices have been scrambled beyond anything we have previously encountered. We may need to completely rebuild the resonance chamber from scratch, assuming we can even identify what caused this cascade failure." The Admiral's mandibles clicked in frustration, a sound that made several nearby technicians flinch. Alex knew why this news was particularly devastating. Intelligence reports had confirmed that the Void Swarm was massing for their largest offensive in decades. The Coalition needed every weapon they could get, especially one as powerful as the Void Reaper. "Cannon." "Sir," Communications Officer Lyra called from her station. "Priority transmission from Coalition Command. The Void Swarm has been detected moving toward the Kepler shipyards. Estimated arrival time is 72 hours. The research bay fell silent except for the ominous beeping of the malfunctioning weapon systems. Kepler represented the Coalition's primary ship construction facility. Losing it would cripple their ability to replace vessels lost in the ongoing war. "We need that weapon operational," Corvin stated flatly. "The Stellar Dominion is the only ship capable of mounting the Void Reaper cannon, and without it, we cannot stop a full swarm assault on the shipyards." Thane's crystalline form dimmed with what Alex recognized as deep resignation. "Admiral, I understand the urgency, but the complexity of this system exceeds anything we have worked with before. The quantum resonance patterns alone require calculations that our fastest computers need weeks to process." As the senior staff discussed evacuation procedures and fallback positions, Alex found himself studying the chaotic patterns on the displays with growing fascination. There was something familiar about the seemingly random fluctuations, something that reminded him of a problem he had encountered during his final year at university. "Excuse me," Alex said quietly. Raising his hand like a student in class, the conversation stopped, and every head in the bay turned toward him. Alex suddenly became very aware that he was just a maintenance technician, interrupting a meeting between some of the most brilliant minds in the galaxy. "Yes?" Admiral Corvin asked, his tone suggesting surprise rather than irritation. "I might be completely wrong about this," Alex began, feeling his face flush under the attention, But those patterns on the display, they remind me of something I studied in school. Chief Engineer Thane's form brightened with what Alex had learned indicated condescension. You studied quantum resonance theory in your human educational system? Not exactly, Alex admitted. But I did work on a project involving feedback loops in electronic systems. When we tried to suppress natural resonance patterns, we got chaos that looked a lot like this. Dr. Kellen, the station's senior physicist, stepped forward with interest. The elderly Altarian's feathers ruffled in a pattern that suggested curiosity rather than dismissal. Explain what you mean by natural resonance patterns. Alex pointed at the displays, trying to organize his thoughts. Well, every system wants to operate at certain frequencies. When you try to force it to work at different frequencies, you get interference. But what if the chaos isn't really chaos? What if it's the system trying to tell us what frequency it actually wants to use? The statement caused a stir among the assembled engineers. Several began talking at once, their voices creating a babel of different languages and harmonic patterns. Thane raised his hand for silence. The Void Reaper cannon operates according to established principles of quantum mechanics, Thane said. Firmly, the resonance frequencies are precisely calculated based on the Zephyrian principle of quantum resonance. There is no natural frequency that differs from our calculations. Alex nodded respectfully but continued to study the displays. I understand that, sir. But what if the principle doesn't scale up properly? Sometimes theories that work perfectly. For small systems break down when you apply them to something this massive. The suggestion that one of the galaxy's fundamental scientific principles might be flawed sent another wave of discussion through the assembled scientists. Alex began to regret speaking up as he noticed several hostile expressions directed his way. Furthermore, Alex continued, knowing he had already committed himself, what if instead of fighting these patterns, we worked with them, used them as a foundation and built the targeting system around what the weapon actually wants to do? Admiral Koven studied the young human with renewed interest. How long would such an approach take? Alex looked at the displays again, his mind racing through calculations and half-remembered lessons from undergraduate physics courses. If I'm right about this being a resonance problem rather than a fundamental system failure, maybe 30 minutes to retune the harmonic dampeners. The research bay erupted in voices again, this time with clear tones of disbelief and anger. The idea that a human maintenance worker could solve in 30 minutes what the galaxy's best engineers could not fix in 6 months struck many as insulting. 30 minutes? Thane demanded, his crystalline form now cycling through colors that indicated outrage. To repair a quantum weapon system that represents the pinnacle of alien technology? Not repair, Alex corrected carefully. Retune, like adjusting a musical instrument instead of rebuilding it. Admiral Corvin was quiet for a long moment, weighing impossible options against desperate circumstances. Finally, he made his decision. Dr. Kellen, I want you to review this human's proposal immediately. If there is even a small chance that his approach might work, we have to attempt it. As the meeting dispersed and Alex found himself assigned to work with Dr. Kellen on analyzing the weapon's resonance patterns, he could not shake the feeling that he had just volunteered for something far more significant than fixing a broken machine. The fate of the Kepler shipyards and potentially the entire war effort might depend on whether his half-formed theories about quantum harmonics were correct. Standing before the massive Void Reaper cannon, Alex realized that in 30 minutes, he would either prove that human intuition could succeed where alien sophistication had failed, or he would become responsible for one of the Coalition's greatest military disasters. The quantum resonance laboratory hummed with an energy that made Alex's teeth ache as he stood beside Dr. Kellen, studying readouts that represented 3 years of painstaking research. The Altarian physicist had spent the past 6 hours reviewing Alex's theories, his feathers shifting through patterns that Alex had learned indicated intense concentration mixed with growing excitement. Your hypothesis about natural resonance frequencies has merit, Dr. Kellen admitted, his large eyes reflecting the holographic displays that surrounded them. but implementing it would require us to abandon everything we know about large-scale quantum manipulation. Alex nodded, understanding the magnitude of what he was suggesting. I know it sounds crazy, but look at these failure patterns from the past 3 years. Every time the weapon malfunctions, it produces the same basic interference signature. That's not random chaos. That's a system trying to establish its preferred operating state. The evidence was compelling when viewed from this new perspective. The Void Reaper cannon had been reverse-engineered based on quantum principles that worked perfectly for smaller weapons. But the massive scale of this particular device introduced variables that the Coalition scientists had not fully considered. The original builders of this weapon were the Ancients, Dr. Kellen mused, pulling up historical data on the mysterious civilization that had vanished millions of years ago. Their technology operated on principles we still do not fully understand. Perhaps they designed this weapon to self-regulate its quantum harmonics rather than being controlled by external calculations. Alex felt a spark of excitement as the pieces began to fit together. Exactly. We've been trying to impose our understanding on their technology instead of learning how their technology actually wants to work. The laboratory door slid open with a soft hiss, and Chief Engineer Thane entered with several members of his technical staff. The crystalline being's form was displaying colors that Alex had learned meant skepticism mixed with reluctant curiosity. Dr. Kellen, Thane said formally, Admiral Corvin has ordered a full review of the human's proposal. I must admit, I find the entire concept highly dubious, but our current approach has yielded no results. Alex felt the weight of attention as the assembled engineers focused on him. Most were species he had never encountered before joining the Coalition, beings whose civilizations had mastered interstellar travel when humanity was still learning to make fire. The fact that they were seriously considering his theories felt surreal. Show them the resonance cascade analysis, Dr. Kellen encouraged. Alex activated the holographic display, showing the weapon's behavior patterns over the past 3 years. Every failure follows the same sequence. The system tries to establish these specific harmonic frequencies. Our dampening fields suppress them, and the resulting interference creates a feedback loop that eventually destabilizes the entire quantum matrix. Engineer Velan, whose tentacled form writhed with what Alex had learned indicated deep thought, studied the patterns carefully. You are suggesting that our dampening fields are actually causing the instability? Not causing it exactly, but fighting against the weapon's natural tendency to self-regulate. It's like trying to tune a violin while someone else is constantly adjusting the tension on the strings. The analogy seemed to resonate with several of the engineers, though Thane remained skeptical. The mathematical principles governing quantum resonance are well established. The Zephyrian equations have been verified across thousands of applications, but have they been verified at this scale? Alex asked respectfully. The Void Reaper cannon is orders of magnitude larger than any weapon system the Coalition has built. Maybe the equations work perfectly for smaller applications but break down when you try to apply them to something this massive. Dr. Kellen pulled up a comparison chart showing the weapon's mass and energy output relative to other Coalition systems. The difference was staggering. The Void Reaper cannon was not just larger than other weapons, it existed in an entirely different category of technology. The scaling issue has theoretical precedent, Dr. Kellen admitted. Quantum mechanics behaves differently at different scales. What works at the molecular level does not always apply at the astronomical level. Alex sensed an opportunity to press his case. What if we ran a small test? Instead of trying to completely retune the system, we could just adjust one of the harmonic dampeners to match what the weapon seems to want to do naturally. Thane's form cycled through colors that indicated alarm. Any modification to the quantum resonance system carries enormous risk. We could destabilize the entire station. But we could also solve the problem, Alex countered. Right now, the weapon is completely non-functional. A small test might give us the information we need to understand what's really going wrong. The debate continued for hours. with engineers presenting calculations and theoretical models that supported both sides of the argument. Alex found himself defending concepts he barely understood, drawing on half-remembered physics lessons and intuitive leaps that he could not fully explain. Finally, Admiral Corvin arrived with news that forced a decision. Long-range sensors had detected the Void Swarm fleet accelerating toward the Kepler shipyards. Their arrival time had been revised to 60 hours, making any extended debate impossible. "We are out of time for theoretical discussions," Corvin announced. "Chief Engineer Thane, what is your assessment of the humans' proposal?" Thane's crystalline form dimmed with reluctance. "The theoretical foundation is questionable, but our current approach has completely failed. If we are going to attempt this, we need to do it immediately. Dr. Kellen?" The physicist's feathers displayed patterns that Alex had learned indicated cautious optimism. "The mathematics are unconventional, but they are not impossible. The human's intuitive approach might succeed, where our systematic methods have failed." Admiral Corvin studied Alex with an expression that seemed to weigh the young human's entire existence. "You understand what you are proposing? If this fails, we lose our only chance to save the shipyards." Alex felt the crushing weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. "I understand, sir. But I also understand that doing nothing guarantees failure." The Admiral nodded slowly. "Very well. You have permission to attempt your modifications. Chief Engineer Thane will provide whatever support you require." As the group dispersed to prepare for the attempt, Dr. Kellen approached Alex with a mixture of encouragement and concern. "You realize that you are about to either revolutionize our understanding of quantum mechanics or become responsible for a catastrophic failure that costs millions of lives." Alex swallowed hard, suddenly feeling very young and very far from home. "No pressure, right?" "Indeed," Dr. Kellen replied with what might have been humor. "But remember, sometimes the most profound discoveries come from those who do not know that what they are attempting is supposed to be impossible." Standing in the quantum resonance laboratory, surrounded by technology that represented the pinnacle of galactic civilization, Alex began to prepare for 30 minutes that would either validate his theories or end his career in spectacular failure. The Void Reaper cannon waited silently, its massive form seeming to pulse with potential energy, as if it too understood that everything was about to change. Alex stood before the primary control console of the Void Reaper cannon, acutely aware that every being in the research bay was watching his every movement. The massive weapon stretched above them like a cathedral of advanced technology, its quantum resonance chamber humming, with barely contained energy that could either save the Coalition fleet or destroy the entire station. The holographic displays showed the same chaotic patterns that had frustrated the galaxy's best engineers for months. But Alex forced himself to see them differently. Instead of viewing the seemingly random fluctuations as system failures, he tried to interpret them as the weapon's attempt to communicate its preferred operating parameters. "Beginning harmonic analysis," Alex announced, his voice steadier than. He felt his fingers moved across the alien interface, calling up diagnostic routines that would normally take hours to complete. Time was a luxury they did not possess. Chief Engineer Thane stood nearby, his crystalline form displaying colors that indicated skepticism mixed with reluctant hope. "The quantum resonance chamber is currently operating at 14% stability. Any reduction below 10% will trigger an automatic safety shutdown." Alex nodded, understanding the narrow margin for error he was working within. A shutdown would mean at least another 6 hours to restart the system, time that the approaching Void Swarm fleet would not allow them. "Dr. Kellen," Alex called to the physicist, "can you bring up the resonance frequency data from the weapon's last successful firing sequence?" The Altarian's feathers ruffled as he accessed the historical records. "This data is from the weapon's original configuration, before we began our modifications. The harmonics are completely different from current parameters." Alex studied the comparison between the original and current frequency patterns, looking for the underlying mathematical relationships that might explain the weapon's behavior. What he saw made him smile for the first time in hours. "There it is," he said quietly. The weapon isn't malfunctioning. It's trying to return to its original configuration. Engineer Valen's tentacles writhed with excitement as she studied the same data. The frequency relationships follow the same mathematical progression, but at completely different base harmonics. Exactly, Alex confirmed. We've been trying to force the weapon to operate according to our principles, but it wants to work according to its original design. The ancients built this cannon to self-regulate, and our modifications have been fighting against that self-regulation. For 3 years. Admiral Kovan stepped closer to the console, his tactical mind following the implications. You are saying that our attempts to improve the weapon have actually been sabotaging it? Not sabotaging exactly, but definitely interfering with its natural operation, Alex explained as he began making the first series of adjustments. Think of it like trying to conduct an orchestra where every musician is playing from a different sheet of music. The first modification involved adjusting the primary harmonic dampener to match the weapon's preferred bass frequency instead of suppressing it. Alex's fingers moved with growing confidence as he watched the chaos patterns on the displays begin to show signs of organization. Stability increasing to 16%, reported Thane, his tone carrying a note of surprise. The quantum matrices are beginning to align. Alex continued working, treating the massive superweapon like a delicate instrument that needed tuning rather than a machine that needed repairing. Each adjustment was small and subtle, but the cumulative effect was dramatic. The targeting system is coming online, announced Tactical Officer Irol from her monitoring station. Accuracy projections are improving rapidly. As Alex worked, he found himself falling into a rhythm that felt almost meditative. The alien technology responded to his touch as if it had been waiting years for someone to understand what it was trying to accomplish. Instead of fighting the weapon's natural tendencies, he embraced them and built the control systems around them. Power output increasing, Dr. Kellen reported, his voice filled with scientific fascination. Energy efficiency is now 23% above original specifications. The transformation was visible on every display in the research bay. Chaotic wavelengths resolved into elegant mathematical progressions, random energy spikes became controlled power distributions, and the weapon's entire quantum signature shifted from discord to harmony. How is this possible? Thane asked, his crystalline form now cycling through colors that indicated amazement rather than skepticism. The energy readings are beyond anything we achieved with our previous configurations. Alex made a final adjustment. To the targeting system's quantum oscillator, fine-tuning a frequency that had been operating at a fraction of a percent off its optimal setting. The entire weapon system suddenly hummed with smooth, stable power that seemed to resonate through the deck plating. System stable, announced the station's computer. All quantum matrices aligned, weapon ready for firing sequence. The research bay fell completely silent except for the gentle, harmonious hum of perfectly calibrated machinery. Alex stepped back from the console, wiping sweat from his forehead as he realized what he had just accomplished. 28 minutes, Admiral. Kovan said quietly, checking his chronometer. You repaired a quantum superweapon in 28 minutes. The implications began to sink in as engineers throughout the bay studied their displays with expressions of wonder and disbelief. The weapon was not just functional, it was operating at levels that exceeded its original design specifications. The harmonic resonance is perfect, Thane admitted, his earlier skepticism replaced by professional admiration. Better than perfect, the stability margins are higher than anything we have achieved before. Dr. Kellen was analyzing the final configuration with the intensity of a scientist witnessing a fundamental breakthrough. Alex, you have not just fixed this weapon. You have revolutionized our entire approach to large-scale quantum mechanics. I just listened to what the machine was trying to tell us, Alex replied, suddenly feeling overwhelmed by the attention and praise. Sometimes when you are too close to a problem, you miss the obvious solutions. Engineer Valen approached the console. Her tentacles moving in patterns that Alex had learned indicated deep respect. You treated this ancient technology as if it were a living system rather than a mechanical device. Maybe that is exactly what it is, Alex suggested. The ancients were far more advanced than we realized. What if they built self-aware systems that could adapt and optimize themselves? The possibility sent waves of excitement through the assembled scientists and engineers. If Alex was correct, it would mean that coalition technology had been fundamentally misunderstanding the nature of ancient artifacts for decades. "Sir," Communications Officer Lyra called from her station, "priority message from the Stellar Dominion. They are requesting immediate departure clearance to intercept the Void Swarm fleet." Admiral Corvin nodded with satisfaction. "Inform Captain Torres that his primary weapon is fully operational and performing beyond specifications. The Kepler shipyards will be defended." As the research team began documenting the modifications and preparing to transfer the weapon to the Stellar Dominion, Alex found himself surrounded by beings whose civilizations had been exploring the galaxy for millennia. They looked at him with expressions he had never expected to see directed at a human maintenance technician. "What you have accomplished here will change everything," Dr. Kellen told him quietly. "The tactical implications alone are staggering, but the scientific breakthrough is even more significant." Alex watched through the observation windows as the Stellar Dominion prepared for departure, its newly optimized weapon system ready to face the greatest threat the Coalition had encountered in years. In 30 minutes, he had not only saved the Kepler shipyards but potentially altered the course of the entire war. Standing in the research bay, surrounded by the gentle hum of harmoniously functioning technology, Alex realized that he had discovered something far more important than a weapons repair technique. He had proven that sometimes the most advanced problems required the simplest solutions: patience, humility, and the wisdom to listen before trying to fix. The bridge of the Stellar Dominion trembled with barely contained energy as the massive dreadnought dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system. Through the main viewport, the Void Swarm fleet appeared as a dark cloud of organic ships, their twisted forms pulsing with malevolent bioluminescence as they advanced toward the Coalition's most important shipyard facility. Alex stood in the Weapon Control Center, surrounded by displays showing the Void Reaper cannon's harmonious energy patterns. The journey from Research Station Delta 7 had given him time to fully understand what his modifications had accomplished, and the results exceeded even his most optimistic expectations. "Enemy fleet composition confirmed," reported Tactical Officer Errol. 12 heavy bio-cruisers, 47 assault pods, and 1 command vessel of unknown configuration. Total estimated mass is 3 times larger than our previous intelligence suggested. Captain Torres studied the tactical display with the calm expression of an officer who had faced impossible odds before. "Recommendations?" "The traditional approach would be to engage the smaller vessels first and work our way up to the heavy cruisers," Errol replied. "However, with the weapon's new capabilities, we have other options." Alex monitored the cannon systems as the crew prepared for battle. The quantum resonance chamber was operating at perfect stability, its harmonics creating energy patterns that seemed almost musical in their mathematical elegance. The weapon was ready to prove that his theories about ancient technology were correct. "Alex," Chief Engineer Thane called from his station, "the weapon's targeting system is detecting quantum signatures that should not be possible. The enemy command vessel appears to be generating reality distortions similar to our own cannon." The discovery sent a chill through the bridge crew. If the Void Swarm possessed their own reality-warping weapons, the battle would be far more dangerous than anyone had anticipated. "Can our weapon penetrate their defenses?" Captain Torres asked. Alex studied the enemy signatures, comparing them to the Void Reaper cannon's current configuration. "Their technology operates on different principles than ours, but the underlying quantum mechanics are similar. I think we can adapt our harmonics to counter their distortions." "How long will that take?" Torres demanded. "Give me 5 minutes," Alex replied, already beginning to adjust the weapon's frequency patterns to match the enemy's quantum signature. The modification process felt different this time. Instead of fighting against chaotic patterns, Alex was creating harmony between two opposing systems. The Void Reaper cannon seemed to understand what he was attempting, its self-regulating systems adapting to complement his adjustments. Enemy fleet is entering weapons range, Iril announced. They are targeting the orbital construction platforms. Alex made his final adjustments just as the first enemy bio-cruiser opened fire. The Void Swarm's weapons created tears in space itself, but their attacks were crude and unfocused compared to the elegant precision of ancient technology. Weapon ready, Alex announced, targeting the command vessel. The Void Reaper cannon fired with a sound like a perfect musical chord played by instruments that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The beam that emerged was not the crude energy discharge typical of Coalition weapons, but a focused distortion of reality itself that moved through space like liquid light. The enemy command vessel's defensive fields flared as they tried to deflect the attack, but Alex's modifications had perfectly matched the cannon's harmonics to counter their quantum signature. The ancient weapon cut through their defenses as if they were made of paper, striking the bio-ship's core and causing it to collapse into itself like a deflating balloon. Direct hit, Iril reported with amazement. The command vessel is completely destroyed. The loss of their command ship sent waves of confusion through the Void Swarm fleet, but they continued their advance toward the shipyards. Alex was already retargeting the cannon, adjusting its harmonics to match the quantum signatures of the heavy bio-cruisers. The weapon's efficiency is remarkable, Thane observed. Power consumption is 60% lower than our projections, and the recharge time has been cut in half. Alex fired again, this time targeting 3 bio-cruisers simultaneously. The Void Reaper cannon split its beam into multiple focus streams, each one precisely calibrated to penetrate the specific defenses of its target. All 3 enemy vessels were destroyed in a single coordinated strike. Impossible, breathed Communications Officer Lyra. No weapon system should be able to maintain that level of precision while firing multiple targets. Ancient technology is not bound by our limitations, Alex explained as he continued his systematic destruction of the enemy fleet. The weapon is essentially thinking for itself, calculating optimal firing solutions faster than our computers can process. The battle continued for another 20 minutes, but the outcome was never in doubt. The Void Reaper cannon, operating at its intended capacity for the first time in millennia, systematically dismantled the Void Swarm fleet with surgical precision. Each shot was perfectly calculated, each target eliminated with minimal energy expenditure. When the last enemy vessel exploded in a burst of bioluminescent fluid, the bridge crew stood in stunned silence. They had just witnessed the most one-sided space battle in Coalition history, and it had been accomplished by a single weapon operated by a human maintenance technician. Damage report, Captain Torres ordered. No damage to report, sir, Iril responded. Our shields were never even tested. The enemy never had a chance to mount an effective attack. Alex powered down the Void Reaper cannon, watching as its quantum harmonics settled into a peaceful standby configuration. The weapon seemed satisfied with its performance, its systems, humming with the contentment of technology operating exactly as its creators had intended. Alex, Dr. Kellen approached with datapads full of readings from the battle. The efficiency statistics are unprecedented. You achieved tactical superiority that military strategists have dreamed about for centuries. It was not really me, Alex replied honestly. The weapon did most of the work. I just helped it remember how it was supposed to function. Chief Engineer Thane's crystalline form displayed patterns that Alex had learned indicated profound respect. You have revolutionized our understanding of both ancient technology and quantum warfare. This battle will be studied in military academies for generations. As the Stellar Dominion began rescue operations for the few surviving Void Swarm crew members, Alex found himself contemplating the broader implications of what had just occurred. The ancient weapon had not just won a battle. It had demonstrated a level of technological sophistication that challenged everything the Coalition thought they knew about their predecessors. The ancients built this weapon to be more than just A tool of destruction, Alex mused to Dr. Kellen. It is almost like they designed it to teach us something about the nature of harmony and balance. The physicist's feathers ruffled with excitement. You mean the weapon itself was intended as a lesson rather than merely a weapon? Maybe both? Alex suggested. What if the ancients knew that, eventually, someone would need to understand how to work with their technology instead of trying to dominate it? The possibility that the ancient civilization had deliberately left behind educational tools, disguised as weapons, opened up entirely new avenues of research and exploration. If Alex was correct, then every ancient artifact in Coalition possession might contain knowledge that could advance their understanding by centuries. Standing on the bridge of the stellar dominion, watching the rescued shipyard workers celebrate their salvation, Alex realized that his 30-minute repair job had accomplished far more than saving a single battle. He had opened a door to understanding a lost civilization whose wisdom might be exactly what the galaxy needed to survive the challenges ahead. The Void Reaper cannon rested silently in its mounting, its quantum harmonics singing a gentle song that only Alex seemed able to hear. It was the sound of ancient knowledge waiting patiently for those wise enough to listen, and Alex knew that this was only the beginning of what they might learn. News of the Battle of Kepler spread through Coalition space faster than hyperspace communications could carry it. Within days, every species in the Alliance was discussing the human maintenance technician who had single-handedly revolutionized their understanding of ancient technology and quantum warfare. Alex found himself at the center of attention he had never wanted and responsibilities he felt completely unprepared to handle. The Coalition Science Council convened an emergency session on Research Station Alpha 1, the Alliance's primary scientific facility. Representatives from dozens of worlds gathered to hear Alex explain his methods and to witness demonstrations of the principles that had transformed the Void Reaper cannon from an unreliable curiosity into the most effective weapon in the galaxy. Alex stood before an audience that included some of the most brilliant minds in known space, feeling like a student who had been asked to lecture his professors. The presentation chamber was filled with beings whose civilizations had been exploring the mysteries of the universe for millennia, all waiting to learn from a 24-year-old human who had stumbled onto something extraordinary. The key insight, Alex began, his voice carrying to every corner of the chamber, was recognizing that ancient technology is not just advanced, it is fundamentally different from our approach to engineering. Instead of imposing control through complex calculations, the ancients built their systems to achieve harmony through self-regulation. Dr. Vex, the Council's senior theoretical physicist, raised a tentacle in question. You are suggesting that ancient machines possess a form of artificial consciousness? Not consciousness exactly, Alex replied, calling up holographic displays that showed the Void Reaper cannon's harmonic patterns, but something like instinct. The weapon knows how it wants to operate, and when we stop fighting against those instincts, it performs beyond our wildest expectations. The demonstration that followed left the assembled scientists speechless. Alex had brought a smaller ancient artifact, a power distribution node recovered from the same derelict ship as the Void Reaper cannon. For months, Coalition engineers had struggled to make it function at even basic levels. In less than 10 minutes, Alex had the device operating at 150% of its theoretical maximum efficiency simply by adjusting its control parameters to match its natural resonance patterns instead of forcing it to conform to Coalition standards. The implications are staggering, admitted Chief Researcher Nala, her crystalline form cycling through colors that indicated profound excitement. If these principles apply to other ancient artifacts, we could revolutionize everything from power generation to faster-than-light travel. Over the following weeks, Alex worked with research teams across the Coalition to apply his harmonic theories to other ancient technologies. The results consistently exceeded expectations. Hyperspace engines that had operated at 60% efficiency for decades suddenly achieved 95% performance. Shield generators that had required constant maintenance began self-regulating their power outputs. Communication arrays that had been prone to interference started producing crystal-clear signals across vast distances. The military applications were immediately apparent. Coalition fleets equipped with harmonically tuned ancient technology could outmaneuver and outfight enemy forces that had previously been considered superior. The Void Swarm, which had been gaining ground across multiple sectors, suddenly found themselves facing weapons and defenses that operated on principles they could not understand or counter. Alex accepted a position as Director of Intuitive Engineering, a new department created specifically to address problems that traditional approaches could not solve. His first major project involved analyzing the Coalition's entire inventory of ancient artifacts, many of which had been sitting in storage facilities for years. Because no one could make them work properly, the breakthrough came when Alex realized that individual ancient devices were designed to work together as integrated systems. A power core from one artifact could be harmonically linked to a shield generator from another, creating combinations that were far more effective than the sum of their individual parts. "It is like they left us a puzzle," Alex explained to Dr. Kellen as they watched technicians installing a hybrid ancient coalition system on a new class of destroyer. Each artifact contains part of the solution, but you need multiple pieces to see the complete picture. The physicist's feathers displayed patterns of wonder as he studied the installation. The ancient civilization was far more sophisticated than we ever imagined. They were not just building individual technologies, they were creating an entire technological ecosystem. The war against the Void Swarm began to turn decisively in the Coalition's favor as more ships were equipped with harmonically optimized systems. Ancient technology that had been dormant for millions of years awakened under Alex's guidance, revealing capabilities that defied conventional understanding of physics and engineering, but perhaps the most significant change was not in the technology itself, but in how Coalition engineers approached problem-solving. Alex's methods spread throughout the scientific community, encouraging researchers to listen to their equipment and work with natural systems rather than against them. "You have taught us to be humble," Chief Engineer Thane told Alex during a ceremony honoring his contributions to the war effort. "We thought our advanced knowledge made us superior to those who came before us, but you showed us that wisdom often lies in simplicity and patience." The ceremony took place aboard the newest Coalition flagship, a vessel that incorporated so many harmonically tuned ancient systems that it operated more like a living organism than a traditional starship. Its quantum drives could fold space with an efficiency that made hyperspace travel seem primitive, while its defensive systems created reality barriers that could deflect attacks from entire enemy fleets. As Alex stood on the bridge, watching stars streak past at velocities that should have been impossible, he reflected on how much had changed since that morning when he had simply suggested listening to what a broken weapon was trying to tell them. "Sir," Communications Officer Reed called from her station, "long-range sensors are detecting something unusual in the outer rim. The signatures match ancient technology, but they are active rather than dormant." Alex felt a familiar excitement as he studied the sensor readings. The patterns were unmistakably ancient, but they showed signs of recent activation and purposeful movement. "It appears we are not the only ones who have learned to awaken sleeping technology," Dr. Kellen observed. "The question is whether these new signals represent friends or enemies." As the Coalition fleet adjusted course to investigate the mysterious ancient signatures, Alex realized that his 30-minute repair job had been just the beginning of a much larger story. The galaxy was full of sleeping wonders waiting for someone, patient enough to listen, wise enough to learn, and humble enough to accept that the most advanced solutions were often the simplest ones. The Void Reaper cannon hummed quietly in its mounting, its harmonics now serving as the template for an entire new generation of Coalition weapons. But more than that, it had become a symbol of what could be accomplished when different civilizations worked together, learning from each other and from those who had come before, standing on the bridge of a ship that moved through space like music made manifest. Alex knew that the real adventure was just beginning. The ancient civilization had left behind more than just artifacts. They had left a path toward understanding the deeper harmonies that connected all things in the universe, and, somewhere in the darkness between the stars, other voices were beginning to sing,